Welcome back class in part 3. Now in this part we will start with the topic harm principle. In earlier two parts we have already discussed how one's freedom should be curtailed, what are the constraints, how we are going to discuss what are the restrictions that one should be imposed upon to to access his freedom or to do things what he or she is free to do. Now in this part we will see harm principle. Harm principle is nothing but a simple thing. That means we will do things when we are given freedom, but these things will not affect others freedom, they will not create hindrance, or they will not impact others people's freedom or other citizens freedom. That means if I am doing something because I have been given freedom, I have been given freedom by the authority or the government, it should not hamper or hinder create hindrance for other people. So that means in harm principle we will discuss the limits, competence and consequences of the imposition of the constraints that we are putting on someone's freedom. That means what are the limits of the freedom, how far can you practice your freedom, what is the competence, how are you going to decide that with this freedom people are going to hamper other people's freedom, and with this freedom nothing is going to happen of that sort, and what are the consequences of the freedom or liberty given to people. So we will discuss all these things, and John Stuart Mill, another political thinker, he has discussed this in his essay on liberty. He has called it as harm principle. So if you are asked a question regarding from whose ideas this concept of harm principle emerged, you can say John Stuart Mill from his essay on liberty. Now his quote is given. This is his quote. We will try to read this quote and then we will see what he is trying to say. Now, the sole end for which mankind are warranted individually or collectively in interfering with the liberty of action of any of their number is self-protection. That means the sole end for which mankind, what they are doing is out of liberty or anything at all, is self-protection. That the only purpose for which a power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to the others. That means everybody is to be given freedom. Okay, that is totally fine. But if we are going to impose some restrictions, some constraints on that person's freedom or that group of people's freedom, those limitations, those constraints are to be exercised in a civilized community rightfully and not in an unlawful or illegal manner, because we are trying to curb, we are trying to restrict some people's freedom. Why? Because we want to control the actions so that it will not harm others. We are trying to control some people's action so that it does not harm others. That is why we are putting some limitations, some restrictions on these people's freedom. So he wanted to say that if we are applying power, if we are using power, it is to be exercised rightfully and not in a wrong way. He also introduces important distinction. He distinguishes between self-regarding actions and other regarding actions. Now, here we have two words. That means self-regarding actions and the other regarding. These words are very simple. As you can see, the meaning is completely in front of you. That is self-regarding actions, that whatever we do, that has impact on us and not impacting anybody else. Like smoking a cigarette in a room. If we are smoking a cigarette in a room, that smoking is going to affect your lungs, affect your breathing system. And others regarding action, that means if we are doing something wrong which has higher impact on the others, for example driving in a wrong lane on a highway, that means if we were to go this side on a highway lane but somebody is coming from the opposite side, that means this person's actions are other regarding actions, because his actions of going in a wrong way will adversely affect people coming from the right direction. So these are the two important distinctions, two important actions that he has discussed, that self-regarding actions and others regarding actions, because in those actions that also have consequences for the others. If he is going too fast on this lane on wrong side, he might hit someone, he might injure someone, or he might confuse someone coming from the right side, and this might lead to an incident which will be harmful for not only this person but for others as well on that highway. So you can see this is others regarding action. So this is what he is saying ki with respect to actions or choices that affect only oneself, government will not interfere and government should not interfere. So what he is trying to say is that if somebody's actions are inside the criteria umbrella term of self regarding action, that means when one person is doing something and those actions can be categorized into self regarding action, then government should not interfere because that's his business and that his actions are not affecting others. But when these actions are affecting others, that means others regarding action, government will take initiative and put some restrictions if these actions or consequences of these actions are harmful to the others or other people freedom. Then further he says that freedom is the core of the human society, that because that means that as a human being we are bound to be free. We cannot be restricted, we cannot be constrained due to some limitations. We need to be free given the circumstances that actions that we are doing are not harming others and we are following the harm principle. That means if somebody's actions are harming others or they are having an adverse impact on the others life, those actions are to be restricted. But the harm should be serious, it must be serious. For minor harm, Mill recommends only social disapproval, not the force of law. Now what he's trying to say is that if somebody's actions are harming other people at a very minute level, very trivial level, harming in a sense they might create disturbance, something like that, so these actions should not be called upon by these actions should not be restricted by using law force, force of law and things like that. If somebody is playing loud music, for example, here it is given, if somebody is playing loud music in an apartment, nobody is going to call police, that is overreaching of the law. You just need to confront that person or you need to socially ostracize that person, you need to socially boycott that person, that this person is creating nuisance and disturbance in society for by playing loud music. So we are not going to discuss anything with him, we are not going to have a conversation with this person. So this is the he wanted to say that the punishment should fit the crime. That means punishment should fit the crime. You cannot punish a child if if a child, if two or three children, they are playing in a society and they are playing cricket and sometimes they might have they hit a ball and some of them might have broken a window or two by hitting a ball and not intentionally doing this. So at that point of time the punishment should be to stop them from playing at that in that area and not by hitting. We cannot hit that child just because they were playing cricket and the window got broken, it was not intentional, है ना. So we can, what we can do is that we can stop them playing from that playing in that area and similar things can happen. So the punishment should fit the crime. So he is saying that this should be the principle. That means this should be the idea that if the harm caused by someone's actions are at a larger scale and they have a large impact or they have a great impact on other people, then these restrictions should involve the police. And if I'm giving you an example and not the police exactly, I'm saying these actions should involve the lawful force, and if they are not, then minimal punishment will be sufficient for ending that action, like social disapproval, socially boycotting that person, whatever thing they are doing. Because as you can see, the harm that loud music that if a person is playing loud music, the only harm that he is doing is he might be disturbing some people who are patients or some students who are studying for their exams or some people who are sleeping. So he is causing all these nuisances and not any other chaos which is harmful physically or in any other way. Here it is seen that people should be ready to tolerate different ways of life, different points of view, and different interest, so long as they do not cause harm to the others. But such tolerance is not to be extended to views and actions which may put people in danger or foment hatred against them. Now, this line is that we all should be treated equally. We all should be, as I mentioned earlier in part 2, we should be a bowl of salad and not a bowl of soup. That means we should be accepting and open to the other ideas which are existing, which are not detrimental to our freedom, which are not affecting our actions, which are not affecting our health in a way that it is going to be very detrimental to our physical and mental status. So we need to accept these different ways of life, different points of view, है ना. Some of you might say this government is good, some of you might say this government is bad. Each and everybody has different point of view, and all these point of views should be respected, so that we live in a society where everybody is living peacefully and equally without any fear that some person might impose their views and their will onto myself. Now, but here also we can see that but such tolerance need not to be extended to views and actions which may put people in danger or foment hatred against them. That means, okay, we need to be supportive of the different ideas, we need to be supportive of the different perspectives on government, on rules and regulations, everything, that is totally fine. But when these views are against the society in a way that they might cause larger harm, they might cause larger danger to the society, then these views should not be supported. For example, people supporting killing of certain group of people, है ना, in any part of the world, that okay, these people can be killed because they are so and so. That is not justified. These views should not be justified, and they never should be justified. And this applies to each and every region, region of the country and the continent and the world, everywhere in the world. These ideas should not be tolerated, and these ideas should not be promoted, because what they will do is they will promote hatred, and then when it will take then it will take place at a larger level, then it will create a situation of chaos. Hate campaigns cause serious harms to the freedom of others, and actions that cause serious harms are actions on which constraints can be imposed. Now here we are discussing about hate campaigns. Now what are hate campaigns? As you have seen, whenever the election is near, some of the politicians, they start discussing about this. Happens not only in India, in any part of the world. You can see in America, you can see in Finland, Sweden, है ना. You can see there are some people everywhere. There are some people who will try to campaign in a very hateful way against the other communities living in that particular region. So what they are doing is they are trying to use certain derogatory words, certain abusive words, certain stereotypes to promote such ideas, so that people from one community will hate another community just to gain their vote, है ना. So things like hate campaigns should cause serious harms, so they should not be taken very seriously, and they should be socially ostracized, and socially, you can say, socially disapproved, so that people at large do not adhere to these ideas, and they will not adhere to the hate campaigns. So an example of hate campaigns, what kind of punishment can we give to people who are campaigning in a hateful way? Some of you might say, sir, put him inside the jail. Some of you might say, sir, he should be barred from practicing election. Yes, this is right. He should be barred from practicing for participating in election, not practicing election. Sorry. He should be barred from participating in elections. He should be barred from participating in any form of campaign, because he might say things which will turn hateful in a very few minutes and days or months, whatever time that whatever the popularity of that person. If he is very much popular, it will take only few minutes. If he is less popular, it will take few days, but it will reach to the wrong audience, and it will create a situation of chaos. Now, so what we can do is we can restrict his freedom of speech and expression. Why? Because he is campaigning using his freedom of speech and expression. He is expressing himself that this particular community is bad, that particular community is bad, we should be sticking together and all that. And if we curb that person's freedom of speech and expression, we are curtailing that person's hateful campaign. So punishment should fit the crime. For an example, out of nowhere, I will tell you something. the other day I was watching news, and I saw a person, eve teasing a girl, eve teasing, है ना? So I thought, so do comment your views if you think I am right, or if I am wrong, or if you want to suggest some other way. That person was eve teasing a girl. So what I thought was ki the punishment should fit the crime. Here he should be punished very severely. Why? Because this is the beginning of a larger crime. If he is eve teasing, and if he is released easily, if he is on a bail very easily, he will not stop here, and he will do something bigger which will be detrimental to the health of society and that person whom he was in contact with, or whatever he was doing. So the person who is committing such crimes, they need to be dealt at the root level very seriously, and they should be given harshest punishment at that point of time. Now some of you might say, sir, you are what you are saying is very impractical and we cannot do so. We need to do so if we want to curb some things, if we want to change few things in India, in our world as citizens. We need to be aware of all these situations, and we need to ask our government to put in place harsher punishments for these type of crimes, because they do not only affect the society, they affect not only that person at that point of time, but the person who is being harassed, who is being exploited, is develops a situation, develops consequences later on, and it affects their mental health as well. So what we need to do is, we need to see what kind of crimes. That is what we were discussing in this chapter, na, ki what sort of authority external justified, what are areas of life and action should be left free from all external constraints, what can be done, what cannot be done. So few areas are there where strict laws are required very much, so that they can be nipped in the bud, and larger crimes can be stopped. For another example, let me give you another example, that if a person who is stealing a bread, I was watching another video. It was, I guess, 3 to 4 years back. That video was suggested in my timeline recently. So in America itself, and I'm talking about talking in relevance with this example for anywhere. So in America, a boy of around 12 years was beaten up because he was stealing a bottle of water from a supermarket or somewhere, I don't know. So he was beaten so severely, he was thrashed very severely, that he fainted. Now what I think in this what I think for this situation is that he should not be treated with such inhumane manner. He should not be treated with such you can say animal like behavior. Why? Because he was not stealing for for selling something, or for his benefit. He was stealing a bottle of water. He might be thirsty, he might have a family who could not afford something like this. So what I'm trying to say is, in situations like these, you cannot justify the punishment. Why? Because the stealing water is not a crime that not a crime which should receive this much of harshest punishment, and yet he was a child. But another example let me give you, so that you can totally understand what I'm trying to say, that in news often we see juveniles, younger boys committing atrocities like sexual harassment, sexual harassment and rape on girls. So these boys should be dealt very severely. So what I'm trying to say is, if a person is committing a crime which will take a toll on the victim, which will take a toll on the society, whether he is a juvenile, whether he is an adult, that is what is my thinking is. What I'm trying to tell you is, okay, this is my thinking, but we all need to understand the logic. That what I'm trying to say is, if a person who is committing a crime is a juvenile or an adult, no matter he is a juvenile or adult, he should be treated with the harshest punishment in crimes like these. When he is committing a sexual harassment case, when he is committing a rape case on some victim. But if a person, whether a juvenile or an adult, is caught for stealing a bread or something like this, he should not be dealt in a same manner. Why? Because that person is not trying to buy something or trying to change his life. He is just trying to feed himself. So we need to understand, we need to apply the logic that what we are trying to do and what should be done for these different situations at different point of time. I hope you got my idea. If you got my idea what I'm trying to say is, then do write in comment hashtag got an idea. Got an idea. So Mr. Ambani will say, why don't you have Geo? Lame joke. Dad jokes 101 with Aditya sir. Dad jokes 101 with Aditya sir. If you got an idea, why didn't you buy Geo? Now, coming back to the topic, we will see that some restrictions need to be posed, and these restrictions should be reasonable. Reasonable restrictions should be imposed so that they are not excessive, not out of proportion of the action, and defended by reason. Because nowadays we see once in a while that somewhere a bigger crime is committed, one or two juvenile are always there. In some way or the other a juvenile is involved. So we need to bring in laws so that we can curb crime, and we will be, if that person is committing a crime which an adult is committing, so why should not we treat that person like an adult? We need to treat that person like an adult, because that person, that juvenile, is committing a crime just like an adult would. So we need to treat him like an adult because he has committed harshest of the crimes. So what is this? This is what my thinking is, and I hope most of you all would be thinking in a similar way. Now, so we must not develop a habit of imposing restrictions, since such a habit is detrimental to freedom. So we need to impose restrictions, but not frequently. If we are frequently restricting people's freedom, so we are kind of being a detriment. It is being detrimental to their freedom, as they will not be able to exercise their freedom of speech and expression and other freedom which are given in the constitution, which are enshrined in the constitution. Now, coming to topic negative and positive liberty. Now class, we will be coming to negative and positive liberty. Now, we have two dimensions, negative liberty and positive liberty. These are not difficult concepts. You just need to understand what they mean by a single line that I am going to tell you. That negative liberty refers to the liberty of freedom where one has absence of the external constraints from the outside. That means that it seeks to define and defend an area which individual would be inviolable, and which he or she could become whatever he or she wished to do. This is an area which no external authority can interfere. That means negative liberty, you can relate it with negative liberty and no external authority. That means no external authority will interfere in this domain. It is where whatever the individual does is not to be interfered with. That means government will not interfere whatever individual is trying to do. We will see some examples so that it is completely clear to you that what I'm trying to say is what is the meaning of negative liberty. So negative liberty means that it is an area of individual. That means it is this area of individual which is inviolable. That means government cannot interfere in this area whatever an individual is doing, whatever is trying to do, so that whatever he or she has wished to become or trying to do is not violated by the government. Now, what are the examples? We can say some examples are that if you want to become an IAS officer, if you want to become an engineer, you will not be interfered with by with the government. Your area of choice will not be interfered by the government. Why? Because if you want to become an IAS, only you need to have some qualifications, basic education qualifications for eligibility for engineering. Same things applies, that you need to have some basic educational qualification that is required, and apart from that government cannot say that okay, you got 40% of the marks, so you got 40% in class 12th, you cannot become an engineer. If any colleges allowing you to pursue a degree with 40% of the marks, you can pursue. So that means what I'm trying to say is government cannot interfere in these areas. है ना, because a person expresses himself. Here we may here ask that the obvious question is the choice of what clothes to wear in different situations, schools, playing field, office, a choice that can belongs to the minimum area, and therefore one cannot be interfered with the external authority, or is it a choice that can be interfered with state religious authority? So negative liberty arguments are in response to this question. Over what area am I the master? It is concerned with the explaining the idea of freedom from. That means you are getting freedom from how many different aspects of the government, state, religion, and so on. That means if we were to explain negative liberty in one line in a question, we can say, over what area am I the master? If I ask you people that over what area you are the master, you can say, sir, we can get up at whatever time we want to get up, है ना? We if we want to use phone, we can use some examples, some daily life examples that I'm trying to give you. So these areas you are master at. Government cannot sorry, government cannot interfere with these areas. And if you want to become an artist, you just need to draw and become a good artist. Even if you are a bad at drawing, है ना, even if you draw very bad, then also you can become an artist, because government will not interfere. Okay, you are a very bad artist, we cannot allow you to become an artist because you draw very bad. So government cannot interfere in these aspects. So this is the domain of negative liberty. This is the meaning of negative liberty. So in contrast, the arguments of positive liberty are concerned with explaining the idea of freedom too. Then in response to the answer, who governs me? To which the ideal answer is, I govern myself. But who governs me here means that who is the authority that is governing you, and they are concerned with the explaining of idea of freedom to do things whatever one wants to do. And for example, we can see that here we in positive liberty we discuss about individual. We discuss about individual and his or her relationship with society. Individual and society. So that there are conditions and natures of the relationship between individual and society of improving these conditions such that there are fewer constraints to development of individual's personality. Now what does this means? This means that individual and society should have a relationship where society helps individual in attaining whatever he is or she is desiring to attain, whatever they are trying to pursue, whatever they are trying to become. So society should act as a catalyst to enhance their chances of accessing or becoming something they would like to become. For example, here we can see that the person must not be constrained by poverty or unemployment. They must have adequate material resources to pursue their wants and needs. That individual is part of the society. What they are trying to infer is individual is the part of the society, and the individual will participate in every aspect of society, whether decision making process, whether electing a representative from that constituency, whether participating in the government making or law making formulations, and all these things. So above all, to develop their mind and intellect, individuals must have access to education and other associated opportunities necessary to lead a good, reasonably good life. Now this example, let me give you tell you something, that what this means is that in a positive liberty, government or society, whoever is ruling, they should create a conducive environment for an individual to develop so that they can develop and realize their potential. The society should help that person to achieve his goal and achieve his dreams. So for an example, government, like government, I got an example. Government provides midday meal to children, है ना, so that they eat nutritious food. It provides free education for children up to 6 to 14 years of age, so that poverty of their family is not an hindrance for their development. So things like these form part of the positive liberty. So positive liberty recognizes that one can be free only in society and not outside it. Why? Because people people will when you are outside of the society, that means either you are living in an animalistic society, or you cannot say कि tribal society is not part of the society. I am saying when one is outside the society, that means that person is not part of the any society that I'm trying to say. That means that person is part of the nature, and in nature, you know, nature, no laws are followed, and there people will attack. So for example, if I give you an example, if we are living in a natural society where everything is run down by the nature, where natural laws are followed. So in natural laws, we will see that whoever is strong enough, he will dominate others. Whoever is powerful enough to kill other people, he or she will kill that person. So what positive liberty recognizes is that one can be free only in society and not outside it. That means society will give you freedom. Society will give you liberty to develop your potential, to realize your potential, because society has some restrictions, some constraints, some limitations for others to follow, so that they do not become an hindrance, they do not create an hindrance for your development. That means if I am doing something wrong, society and laws will prevent me from doing so, because it will hamper the rights and freedoms of the others. So in a society only you can expect all these things, whereas in negative liberty it is concerned with the inviolable area of non-interference. That means not with the conditions in society outside the area as such. Of course, negative liberty would like to expand this minimum area as much as possible, keeping in mind, however, the stability of society. है ना? तो we see कि both these aspects are required, both these aspects are different yet complement each other. Why? Because positive liberty is also required. We live in a society, we require some form of protection from the other people who might not be following laws when some restrictions are not placed. And we also require negative liberty. Why? We also require negative liberty because we want to express ourselves freely. We want to say whatever we feel like. We want to do things whatever we feel like, है ना? For example, girls want to wear whatever they want to wear. So this should not be, and this should not be restricted by use of religion, by use of region or society or anything at all. It is an example. So if so whatever what I'm trying to say is that both these are in complement with each other and not in contrast with each other. So here we can see they both go together and support each other, but it can happen that tyrants justify the rules by invoking arguments of positive liberty. So what they're trying to say is that yes, positive and negative liberty both go together, but sometimes tyrants, dictators, they will justify their rule that okay, by invoking arguments of positive liberty. And positive liberty was that government or society is providing you some kind of freedom, or they are putting in restrictions. So tyrants will use these statements to justify their rule, that they will say okay, you are free in my society because I am stopping other people from doing so. But this is not the case. So you can see that they both go together, and some people might find some perverted ways to utilize these both ways in a way which will gratify their needs and their wants, hampering or hindering the society development of society as whole. In one line, if I want to explain this, whatever this line is saying is कि if people are bad, they will find some way or the other to twist things or say in a way that they will justify wrongdoings by saying right things. As we have seen in the case of Hitler in class 9th, we have studied how Hitler expressed his views against the Jews and the blacks and the gypsies and the many other group of people that he categorized against the Germans. So he expressed his views and he justified these views by saying that by telling people about the stereotypes, by telling people about the wrong facts that they have been using to propagate their wrong views, है ना? So they will try to justify this. Now coming to freedom of expression. Freedom of expression, it explains freedom to express. That means what I want to express, I can freely express. Whatever you want to freely express, you can express without any restriction or hindrance. Here we will understand through the examples of books and movies, है ना? that some of you might know about Salman Rushdie, है ना? Salman Rushdie and the other writers. Sometimes what they do is, not these writers, what the government does is, of any country, not specifically India, they will try to ban some of the work of these famous authors. Why? Because they think they are trying to shed negative light, they are trying to say negative things about their country, religion, or anything at all. So freedom of expression, it entails this concept that one should be free to express his views or ideas through books or pictures, or by you can say speeches and all. And it should not be restricted just because some people are not finding it conducive to their understanding or what they want to hear. For example, as I mentioned earlier, that people who are eve teasing should be dealt very severely. They should be given the harshest of the punishment. Why? Because if we are not treating them with harshest of the punishment at the starting, then they might go on commit some larger crime. But some of the people who might hear me will say he is exaggerating, he just he wants to gain the following, or if I'm a politician, something like that. So they will say this is not justified, and that Adit's freedom of speech should be restricted. Why? Because they are not finding it conducive to their own understanding, because some of them are still in that orthodox, patriarchal nature, that they are finding it difficult to hear that a person of who is eve teasing is being given such an is being given such harsh punishment, and a person is suggesting this. So what I want to say is ki there might exist a group of people who are opposed to the ideas but their views should not impact upon my views or some other people's views who want to express themselves freely and are not detrimental to the society. So Voltaire in his statement said, I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. How deeply are we committed to this freedom of expression? That is what my question is. That okay, if somebody is saying something, if Aditya sir is voting for this particular party, A party, if Aditya sir is voting for A party, and I have some views, other person voting for B party says no, you are very bad, you are voting for this party, and you should not be given right to vote, and so on, and things like this. Or I am saying to that person, you are voting for B party, you should not be given right to vote, and so on. This is not the idea of freedom of expression. Why? Because I might disapprove that person, what he or she is trying to say, I might disapprove of their statement, but I will not restrict that person's idea to say it. Why? Just because they are saying something different from what I'm saying does not means that they are not entitled to freedom of expression. So this is what this freedom of expression is. So here we have example of the book Ramayana retold by Aubrey Menon, Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. These were banned after protest for some sections of the society. The film Last Temptation of the Christ and the play Me Nathuram Bolte also banned from after protest. And all these books and movies were banned because certain sections of the society felt that this was against their understanding and not the society as a whole. That means if 10 people, if there are total of 10 people or 100 people in a society and a book is published and 10 people from this group they are protesting against this book, 10 people from a group of 100 are protesting against this book, it does not mean that these 10 people are representing views of all 100 people, but still some form of the protest or ban you see in one way or the other that government is doing or government has done in the past. It has been done in the past many times. So you can go to internet and see whatever movies or books that have been banned in India or another part of the world. So banning is an easy solution for short term, but it is very harmful for the long term prospects. Why? Because if we are banning someone from doing things, if we are banning someone from writing a book or expressing themselves, we will tend to develop a habit of banning every other thing which we feel it does not fit in our criteria or our area of understanding. That means if I banned this book, if I banned book 1, then book 2 is launched criticizing something or the other thing about me. Book 3 is launched something or the other thing about me. Or even if it does not, even if they do not discuss it directly, they might have said it implicitly. And then I start banning book 2, book 3, and so on. I will develop a habit that whoever is trying to say whatever thing they feel like are against me, or in a way they are not against me, they are just criticizing me, I will try to ban all these things. And this is a very dangerous habit. Why? Because it is curbing freedom of expression of the others. So it is not an important, so it is not a very long term prospective way, but it is just an easy solution because you are restricting that person, but this will not stop other people from doing so, है ना? In a similar way, you can see some of the film scenes are cut, है ना, by censor board. So what we see is कि censor board feels like, okay, this part of the scene is not will not sit well with the people who are going to watch it, or will not sit well with the group of sections who are going to watch it. So they try to ban or they try to censor all these things. So all these things are part of this, है ना? So what we need to understand is that when should one ban and when should one not. So this is a very gray area. This is a very gray area, just like this, that we cannot make a clear full distinction. Okay, ideas these that fall in these areas should be banned and criticized, should be banned and censored, and ideas falling in these areas should not be banned and censored. So these areas, topics like these are very gray, and it will depend on situation to situation basis, that okay, this idea should be banned, this idea should be censored, and so on. Not censured, it's censored. Now, for example, another example here we have of England, that whoever is working for the royal household, they are asked to sign a contract that whenever you will leave this work offline, you will not discuss anything about it, you will not write a book, you will not discuss or say a thing about this, है ना? So why this is? Because they wanted to restrict why they are restricting some person's freedom who has been working there, because they wanted to protect something. So is it justifiable? Okay, there might be some things which they feel are objectionable if they reach to the common public. They some things, sometimes they will feel that there are some things which will be of security loopholes or lapses if they were to discuss anything about it, है ना? So there are some constraints and restrictions, so we need to judge them case to case basis. So we can see constraints of different kinds as exist, and we are subject to them in different situations: religious, cultural, है ना, societal, authoritative. All we can see is there are different types of constraints. For example, you cannot wear chappals inside a temple, है ना? It is religious constraint because it hampers the purity or sanctity of that temple. So in a way, you can see we are subject to different constraints and we oblige to them in a way, but some constraints by authority or some other are harmful for the freedom of people. For example, restrictions on the freedom of movement of women, restriction of freedom of movement of women, or deciding whatever they want to decide. I'm not saying that today you go and rebel with your parents that Adit sir has said. I am discussing in a more society. I am discussing at a more societal level. We need to understand that because situations are such that people justify these restrictions, that okay, we need to restrict women because they are doing so and so, or they are, no, that is not the case. We need to understand what are the restrictions and how are they hampering one people's freedom or women's freedom, and are they justified or not. And most of the time you will see they are not justified. In some way or the other, there are some dogmatic principles that people impose on women, and they say, okay, this is the restriction that we are going to discuss. No. So coming back to the topic, So if we are not being forced, if we are not being coerced into doing something, so we cannot say that okay, our freedom has been curtailed. If we are asked and if it is logical, we cannot claim that these things or these restrictions are curtailing my freedom. So in any case, if we are not coerced or into accepting the conditions, then we cannot claim that our freedom has been curtailed. For example, if a person who wants to work in a royal household is asked to sign a contract, and they say no, you need to sign a contract, so that person has a choice: either you don't work there or sign a contract. Sorry. Either you don't work there or sign a contract. So that person cannot say no, I was forced to sign a contract. They gave you an option that either you can leave or sign this contract, because they have some restrictions, they have some limitations they want to impose to protect their secrets, protect their official records and whatever they are trying to do. Now, in this chapter, we began by saying that freedom is the absence of external constraints, and we have come now to realize that freedom embodies our capacity and our ability to make choices. And when we have choices, we also have to accept responsibility for our actions and their consequences. It is this reason that most advocates of liberty and freedom maintain children must be placed in care of parents. Now, this topic is related to you. This last thing is related to you. Why? You can see that whenever we make choices, whenever we perform any action, we need to take the responsibility for that action. If we are going to hit somebody, someone else is going to hit us, and we need to own up the responsibility that we first started it. That is why it is said that children should be put in care with the parents, because parents are adults. They know what is right for their children and what is wrong for their children, what is right and what is wrong for the children. And no, I'm not discussing about the life decisions. I'm just discussing that these decisions of right and wrong from your parents side will help you in developing your potential and realizing your potential. So our capacity to make the right choices, to assess in a reasoned manner available options and shoulder the responsibility of actions, have to be built through education, cultivation of judgment, just as much as it needs to be nurtured by limiting the authority of the state and society. That means if we want to develop our potential, if we want to make right choices, and if we want to increase those chances of making maximum number of right choices, how can we do so? We need to educate ourselves, we need to be responsible, and we need to cultivate a sense of judgment. And how are you going to cultivate that sense of judgment? You are going to cultivate your sense of judgment by doing things and understanding what is the logical reason behind it. So we need to understand that whatever we are doing, we need to own up those actions, and those actions need to be logical. They should not hamper or restrict freedom of others. And while we are enjoying our freedom, we should not be doing it in such a way so that it will hamper the freedom of others. So that is for today, guys. Thank you. Have a nice day. I hope this chapter has I have completely explained whatever I was trying to explain. And if you have any doubt, kindly leave a comment. Thank you. Have a nice day. And if you like this video, do comment and give a like. Thank you.